In our Christmas Eve dueling mock draft, Dante Moore and Makai Lemon become an impact package for the New York Jets.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, your daily podcast covering your favorite draft prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your boy, Damian Parson. I'm an NFL draft analyst with Bleacher Report. That's my guy, Kenyan Sanchez. He's the director of scouting with the Draft Network and 2019 national champion with the LSU Tigers. And as always, thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout out for being our every dayers. We have a Christmas Eve mock draft. We are in the giving season, so we're going to help out all 32 teams and hand out some presents with our latest dueling mock draft that we've done, guys. So we're going to go over the favorite picks, the most interesting picks, and the most underrated picks in our latest dueling mock draft. But before we get into all of that, today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use the code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Let's go ahead and get started, Keith. Talk about favorite picks, right? And I think that for me, looking at this mock, I think we did a really good job helping all 32 teams in round one. I would say my favorite pick would be Makai Lemon to the Jets. I gave them both Dante Moore and Makai Lemon. So let's start there. You get a quarterback and you get another receiver. And so Garrett Wilson will be coming back healthy next year. Adonai Mitchell has flashed ever since being traded over, being part of that Sauce Gardner trade. He just hasn't had consistent quarterback play, right? Now you put Makai Lemon in the slot where I think we both agree that's where he's best utilized. Put him in the slot, two-way go, zone beater, chain mover, yak threat, all of that. He could become a security blanket for a rookie quarterback as well. And I think Dante Moore pairing with the Makai Lemon, that's my favorite situation right now out of our mock. For the Jets having two picks, getting both of those guys, that's a home run in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, to hit on a quarterback, right? To get Dante Moore to be like, hey, we have a future signal call is something that the New York Jets need, right? Like they need to get over or get past the retrade situation, right? Where we're trying to get a veteran quarterback in and hope that we strike gold. You've done it 2 times in a row now with Justin Fields and Aaron Rodgers. Neither one worked out. I think for the front office, for the fans, they need a new quarterback. And then I look at the wide receiver situation. Makai Lemon working in the slot could work well, right? It can be a good complementary piece to, like you said, to the rest of the pieces that they have with A.D. Mitchell and Garrett Wilson. DP, I'm going to look at, and this is a selection that you made, I'm going to go with Jeremiyah Love to the Chiefs. And everybody's going to sit and be like, well, how the hell did they end up with him, right? Well, it's because the Chiefs are bad this year, right? So they're constantly climbing up the draft board, meaning they're climbing themselves closer and closer to a really good football player, right? To being able to draft a really good football player. Unfortunately, that's how it goes, right? You wish that I know there's a lot of people that wish that the Chiefs could still pick at 32.
Right.
But that's not how it goes. So Jeremiyah Love there for the Kansas City Chiefs to scoop up. And it's just been obvious to me, in my opinion, with the Kansas City Chiefs this year, the people that they bought in are just not that talented, right? And I'm gonna say this, and it's going to be unpopular because this was a popular name throughout the draft community, but I'm staying where I've always stood. Rashee Rice, I thought was a good player, not a great player. I thought he was a solid football player. And I didn't think that he was somebody that you turn around and look and say, hey, if he's our wide receiver one, we have a great offense, right? Yeah. And because he's doing some of the things that great players don't do, just dropping football. And, the best ability is availability, things like that. You can tell that they need a better wide receiver. Like he can be a good number 2, but having him in the number 1 role and thinking that he can carry an entire offense, I just don't see that. An offense that would be explosive or considered a top 10 offense. So I like Jeremiyah Love piece, being able to start to add explosive pieces. And he's a running back, but y'all just need pieces, period, right? No matter how you can get them, whether that's tight end, wide receiver, or running back.
Yeah, I think with that situation with them, man, I think with the Rasheed, I think for them with the Rasheed Rice thing was like, okay, we got Rasheed Rice who's going to be kind of our possession receiver. In the sense of him being that number one, we could pepper him with targets. He does all the things he does. Yak, get the first downs, the tough gritty yards. They were hoping Xavier Worthy was going to bring that deep threat, the explosive plays, and it just hasn't worked out between him and Pat Mahomes. Whether it's some people blame ball tracking. I just don't think Pat's been great throwing the deep ball, you know what I mean, over the past couple of years either. So it's like things have not worked out. And adding a Jeremiyah Love, and the fact that you can't run the ball, like, you know what I mean, like you can't get favorable numbers in the secondary. Teams don't respect Isaiah Pacheco in that run game and Kareem Hunt at this stage of his career. So I'm with you. Like, you know, when I saw it, I picked for the Chiefs, I was like, I thought I was like Kenyan Sadiq, Jeremiyah Love. I was like, you get an explosive playmaker either way. But I was like, we're probably not going to see Pat Mahomes for about a year and a half. Like, he probably won't, like, he might play at the end of next year just to do it. But I doubt it because he tore his ACL late. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so he tore his ACL, that was the beginning of December. And usually it's let's put it somewhere, because I mean Adrian Peterson came back in 6 months, which is
right.
I don't advise anybody aim
He's
for
an
that
alien,
target.
so yes.
And then it's usually somewhere between 6 months and let's say 10 months. So if you put it at 8 months, he'll be moving around somewhere around August to September, right? But if you're talking about, and I think he'll be ready to play around that time, but if you're talking about being Patrick Mahomes,
right,
that may take another year in itself.
It takes some time. So, like, you bring a Jeremiyah Love into the situation, a dynamic running back, good contact balance, got a vision. We saw the playmaking ability he has with the ball in his hands, but then also that receiving threat, like that ability to split them out, to use them as a receiver out of the backfield, whoever's at quarterback, that just makes their life a lot easier. So, you know what, we can call a dump off. And Andy Reid is still one of the best play callers in the league. You think he can't call creative plays for Jeremiyah Love and find ways to get him in space or get him matched up against that linebacker you don't want him matched up against? No, Andy Reid is definitely going to find that mismatch, and he's going to exploit it. So definitely love that situation as well, Keith. Again, the Chiefs, I would have loved it more if Mahomes was there, of course, but we don't know how that situation is going to pan out. So we'll kind of end up seeing, it overall. But I'll say one that I think you made this pick. I think you might have made it. Did I make it? Yeah, you made it. I'm sorry, you made it. The San Francisco 49ers selecting Kenyan Sadiq, right? We watched on Monday Night Football, Keith. George Kittle dominated that game before he hurt his ankle. Like, you know what I mean? And that connection between him and Brock Purdy. They got to figure out their wide receiver situation, right? They got to figure out, okay, who's going to be our number one? The Brandon Ayuk thing is about to head to a ending of an era, you know what I mean, in the offseason. And truth be told, I expect him to be booking a flight shortly after that to Washington, D.C. to join the Commanders and to join Jaden Daniels. Like, you know what I mean? I believe that's something that they wanted the whole time, but instead of the Commanders pulling off the trade for Ayuk, they pulled off the trade for Debo. I believe Ayuk is going, if they release him this offseason, I believe he's going right to Washington and play for the Commanders. So they got to figure out the wide receiver position. But if you telling me I get to have George Kittle still and Kenyan Sadiq, especially for a team that wants to run that wide zone with Christian McCaffrey, Brock Purdy off the play action, you go 2 tight ends, you know what I mean, and 12 personnel. Yeah, listen, opposing defenses are going to hate this, like, because then you can go some empty and split both of those guys out and get a matchup against safeties and linebackers. And Brock Purdy gets to pick his poison or who he wants to target and have dominate the short and intermediate parts of the field. That's a match made in heaven with Kyle Shanahan.
Yeah, and I guess for our listeners, right, just to understand, Kenyan Sadiq in this dueling mock draft, right, which it makes it difficult, right, when you're going back and forth with somebody like we did, splitting it up. He failed to pick 26, and when I got there and he was still sitting, I said, "Oh man," I'm like, "This is best player available," right? And it can be a situation where you say, "Okay, we have George Kittle already," but you don't pass up on potentially adding another high-end player, right? And we know that George Kittle still playing good football, but he's on the back 9 of his career, right? And so if you can get some crossover, get some years, with those two guys playing together, I mean, if Kenyan Sadiq becomes who we think he should be, you have the best 12, 22 personnel, 2 tight end sets in the entire NFL, right, for a couple years, and it'll just look different, DP. It won't be having, potentially high-end wide receivers, your 1-2 puncher, your tight ends, but which safeties and linebackers can cover with those guys, right? And then now you start
Hernandez type of situation, Keith.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's a really good comparison, right? When the Patriots rolled out that tight end combination, and it caught the league by storm for a couple of years. But DP, let's do this, right? Let's go from favorite picks to most interesting picks, right? The picks that you kind of tilt your head a little bit and say, I could see that working, I can't see that working. So let's go into most interesting picks coming up next.
Today's episode is brought to you by Prospects. The holiday season is one of the best times for sports. Bowl games, big basketball matchups, playoff pushes, it's all happening at once. And while we're all making choices every day, one of the most fun places to make the right call is Prospects. Prospects is the easiest way to get in on daily fantasy. Just pick more or less on at least 2 player projections, lock in your lineup, and you're in the game. It's simple, fast, and available in 45 states, including California, Texas, Florida, and Georgia. Prospects has added an extra layer of excitement to the holiday sports schedule. Download the Prospects app today and use the code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineup after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. Most interesting picks from our dueling Christmas Eve mock draft, Keith. And I want to put you on the spot and have you tell Cowboys Nation what's going on. Because you pick 13, you pick Cashius Howell, and then you double down, pick 21, you went Denzel, Boston. Now, listen, the way that they're set up right now, of course, they do need an edge, so that's a given that they need to select them. Now, a guy like David Bailey was still on the board. There's a couple other edge rushers. I think you picked Derek Moore late, to I think the Bears later on in the draft. Looking at it, Keith, tell Cowboys Nation, because Cowboys Nation be like, bro, why are we taking the receiver? Like, we got George. I think they're going to pay George Pickens. You know what I mean? Because especially the way that Dak and that offense has looked since acquiring George Pickens, they'll be crazy to let him go because that connection is there with him, CD. That trio is strong. Tell Cowboys Nation why. And then the Cashius Howell thing. Cashius Howell being a really good pass rusher, but it's questionable on rundowns and going into that division where you're going to have the Commanders going to run the ball, the Giants with Cam Scatterboo and Jackson Dart, and then the Eagles, of course, with Saquon and Jalen Hurts. Why should they feel good about those 2 players in this mock draft?
Yeah, I guess I'm about to stir the pot, right? So first off, we'll start with the first pick, right? And it was Cashius Howell. The Cowboys are still, I think, close to last as far as when it comes to pressure, it comes to sacks, and all of those metrics, right? So I get it, you need another run defender, but y'all can't sack the quarterback either, right? And I looked at Cashius Howell, and I think he has upside. To me, it means something to be the SEC Defensive Player of the Year, to have double-digit sacks, right? And is he a perfect prospect and can, knock the ball out the park with every single metric? Is he Myles Garrett? No, right? But there's only one Myles Garrett. But will he be an upgrade for you at the edge rush position? I believe so. I think he's a step in the right direction for them. And you look at this team and having traded for Quinnen Williams and having traded for Logan Wilson, right? And everybody thought they're like, okay, those 2 additions are going to immediately turn this around. Well, guess what? Both of those guys were on teams that were on defenses that were bad, right? So acquiring the guys that came from bad defenses, in my opinion, I think it sounded good and it was good for a headline. And Jerry Jones, and this is the part that we have to realize, Jerry Jones had a lot of pressure on him because for the first time in a very long time in the media, he was getting killed because of the Michael Parsons trade, right? So he had to do something to get the pressure off of himself, and he made those selections. Now, does Quinnen Williams and Logan Wilson make you better? But I think it was small increments better because this defense is still bad. Like, I think we've seen it have a bit of an uptick, but then the past few weeks, we've still seen the Chargers roll in there and drop 40 on them, right? Like, this is still not a great defense. So that explains the Cashius Howell one. The Denzel Boston, this goes back to the defense and team construction, right? I think George Pickens is a good football player. I think he's a really good football player. But I think the Dallas Cowboys have to ask themselves, who do we want to be? What do we want to do? Right. And what I mean by that is you paid George Pickens. You just had Jerry Jones complaining the entire offseason that you couldn't play Michael Parsons, right? Because you didn't have enough money. You didn't want to break the bank. There was a number that y'all agreed to and that you didn't want to move off of, right? Like that was the whole conversation. So then you're going to double down and pay another player and pay attention, DP, to the actions, right? That he found scrapes of money to pay Deron Bland, right? Trayvon Diggs was on a big time contract, and he paid a couple other players this past offseason. I think paying George Pickens, it will take from the opportunity to be aggressive in free agency and add more proven defensive pieces. The Cowboys will, okay, cool. George Pickens is a great addition and they play well. What are the Dallas Cowboys record right now? Are they in the playoffs or out of the playoffs?
No,
and that's what we have to ask ourselves, because the truth of the matter is the Cowboys offense that's currently constructed, it isn't elite enough to where they're scoring 35 points on everybody, right? They still have lapses. They played the Chargers and they only scored 17 points. So you need a defense that can keep you in some games. That's how I'm looking at this. And I've always been, this is for years now, DP, and even when you worked with me with the draft note, right? I've been critical of how they drafted. I've been critical of pieces that they had defensively, and I'm like, yep, the minute they get into a physical match with a team, that team is going to beat them, right? Like that's just what's going to happen, because this defense was not currently constructed to really be a tough, gritty defense. And so I like George Pickens. I can understand why people are advocating for, man, just go ahead and pay the man money. You have him on your team right now. What is y'all record, and are y'all going to be in the playoffs? That's my two questions for Dallas Cowboys fans.
No, I mean, those are very valid questions. I think, if I remember, I think there was a report coming out that they might be heading towards a divorce with a Trayvon Diggs, right? So it's like you're thinking, like I know, like for a Cowboys fan, they're probably thinking like, man, because Diggs hasn't been great since he's been battling injury. I think he dealt with 2 back-to-back injuries, stuff like that. If you get his money off the books, right, save yourself some cap space, you open up some not the floodgates, but you open up some room to go through free agency and find those guys. Or they'll probably look at it like kind of in the sense of, now granted, the Falcons situation is a little different because their quarterback situation is not good. But it's like, okay, the Falcons double up with defense, and their defense took a huge step forward this year, which is true. So it's like, okay, well, let's say we paid George Pickens, and with these 2 first-round picks we have, we just go defense. Whether it's 2 edge rushers, an edge rusher, and a line, whatever they need defensively, maybe another corner, right? A Jamal McCoy and a Cashius Howell, or David Bailey and a Jamal McCoy, whatever they want to do. And then you get 2 rookies in there, rookie deals, cost-efficient contracts, and now we have playmakers in the back end and somebody that can go after the quarterback. It's going to be interesting. I saw it when you made the picks. I was like, oh, yeah, this is going to be a nice talking point, because Cowboys Nation, they see that and be like, man, what are we doing? Like, let's pay Pickens and figure everything else out. But to your point, like, they got a lot of things that they have to figure out.
Yeah, and we watched the Cincinnati Bengals, DP, do the same thing. Yeah. They paid T. Higgins, they paid Jamar Chase, and the question is, because I think it's easy to say, man, just go ahead and pay George Pickens. Okay, how much are you paying George Pickens? What's the number? Like put a number on it, because I think the top wide receivers in the NFL are getting $40 million right now. George Pickens is performing like a top wide receiver this year, right? So he's probably not taking less than 30. So are you going to pay him $35 million and give him $100 million kind, paying $35 million a year? That'd be my question. It didn't have $70 to $80 million plus Dak Prescott have $150 million tied into 3 players. Like that's the listen. You remember those meetings I had at the Draft Network? I'm like, I'm tired of playing wide receivers this type of money. I'm tired of paying quarterbacks this type of money. Yeah. Like you got one guy taking up 20% of your cap space, and then you wondering why you can't field a competitive team half the time. Like, it's just one man shouldn't be dominating your cap space just because we all of a sudden said quarterback's the most important position. Yeah, because y'all got away from running the football and being physical, and we turned it to 2-hand touch in the NFL, man. So I listen, I agree with you, Keith. I'm all for you. I'm gonna say another interesting pick, you know, which I actually like. Caleb Downs to the Carolina Panthers at pick 19. Now I'll be completely honest, and Panther fans know how I feel. I'm not a Bryce Young guy. Like, I watch every single game because they're local. He's just too up and down for me. And for a guy that came in as pro ready and everything else,
I just need to see consistency. And the way that their offense is constructed, it's so time of possession. We got to shorten the game. Like when the draft capital they spend on Bryce to have to play this style, like it's maddening to watch because it leaves you for very little room of error. If you have a bad drive or two, you get yourself in position to go down 14 points if your defense allows scores. And then them fighting back is just not great. They do have Lathan Ransom. They have Trayvon Moehrig who played well. Getting Caleb Downs though in this defense, oh, that's a game changer to me. A guy that has the ball skills, the intelligence. Truth, I think Trayvon Moehrig was like a 1-year contract, like a flyer situation. Hey, he played well. Somebody else want to pay him? Let him walk. You get a Caleb Downs, arguably one of the top 5 players in this draft at 19. That's a steal, and you run away with that and say, you know what? We just committed highway robbery. Let's get out of here.
Carolina Panthers DP. And I think that for Bryce Young, they've made it a complimentary situation, which I don't mind, right? I mean, that was the CJ Stroud thing, right? The Houston Texans had good wide receivers, they had some run game, and they had a defense, right? I don't mind that recipe for quarterbacks overall, period. All of them should have some type of complimentary piece. And I think that's why I added Caleb Downs, because I'm like, you know what? If they're investing into this defense and they're relying on this defense to keep them in / win games sometimes, then why not add a Caleb Downs, another high-level piece, right? And you're talking about that combination of him and J.C. Horn floating back there, and you still got a young Nick Scourton and Princely Umemealing and, and Derek Brown and those guys. I mean, you really start to take steps in the direction of can we be a top 5 defense in the entire NFL, give it another year or something like that. But DP, let's do this, man. We did favorite picks. We did most interesting picks. Let's do the most underrated picks, those picks that are flying under the radar. Talk about that coming up next.
Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and everyday shot for being our everydayers. And thank you for making the Locked On Podcast Network the #1 sports podcast network in America, all because of you. Most underrated picks, Keith. I'm going to go to pick 24, the Buffalo Bills. One of the picks I made, Elijah Sarratt. And this is the first time I've put Elijah Sarratt in any first-round mock draft. But looking at the situation, I think last week, it was like the third healthy scratch for Keon. At this point, I think I've said it before, just at this offseason, trade him. Like, just go ahead and separate. I don't know what's going on with that relationship and that situation. It's a healthy scratch. A guy you just took, what was that, was that last year? Like, was that last? Not 2025. So 2024.
Detroit.
Yeah. So 2024 NFL draft, you selected him top of the second round. You moved back. Matter of fact, you know what I mean? And then you selected them, and it just doesn't seem to be working out. The Buffalo Bills getting Elijah Sarratt. And Elijah Sarratt, to me, with the route running and the ability to create separation in a multiple ways and from multiple alignments, where a lot of people were trying, we believed in Keon Coleman. We believe he could play on the outside, right? And then him being paired with a Josh Allen, we thought it would work. But most people felt Keon Coleman was a pure power slot. And I was like, okay, if that's the case, still good, right? Like, I watched power the slot. I watched Brandon Marshall dominate as a power slot for years when he was in Chicago and things like that. Who, you just mixed them up. If they go away from the Keon Coleman situation, Elijah Sarratt would be a guy to pair with his skill set paired with Josh Allen. Yeah, and he meshes well with Dalton Kincaid, with Khalil Shakir. He doesn't have to play in the slot. I've looked at Elijah Sarratt with the release packages, with the route running, the short area quickness, the strength, the ability to separate, the back shoulder fade, the body control. That those things will play in Buffalo, and they need to get a wide receiver 1. They don't have that right now. Now James Cook has been cooking. Josh Allen is Josh Allen, right? And he would be Josh Allen and all the way to the playoffs. But in the postseason, hey, things get tight. And when they take away what you do best or what's made you great during the regular season, what's your answer to that? I think Elijah Sarratt could be that guy one-on-one. If teams leave him on the island, he can win, and Josh Allen will be able to give him the targets to do so.
Yeah, I want to ask this, DP. Let's get into this part of the conversation. There's going to be a narrative that Elijah Sarratt isn't a burner, right? He isn't a 4-3, 4-4. He doesn't appear to be a 4-3, 4-4 type of wide receiver, right? Keon Coleman was not a burner. And there was a lot of reason why a lot of people opposed that pick. What makes the Elijah Sarratt drafting Elijah Sarratt different from Keon Coleman? Because a lot of people are going to have trepidation about it because they probably comp very similar as far as physical profile.
Route running, short area quickness, like footwork, just knowing how to separate. One thing with Keon, he was a power player. Like he can run those slants and different things like that, those in cuts, the hitch routes and things of that nature. But he won more with his frame and more with power. And it's like, hey, that wins in the NFL if you're going to let him live like that. Like, hey, throwing that back shoulder fade, giving him, he's an outstanding athlete too. Like we've seen his basketball highlights. And there are times when Josh Allen throw that 50-50 ball, and he goes up and snatches it from the DB, whether it's down the field, in the red zone, whatever, but they don't rely on that, right? And it's just a simple fact of, hey, if that's not what he does and that's not how you want your wide receiver one to win, that's fine. Elijah Sarratt is a different style. He doesn't have the same verticality. And I don't think he has the same 40 and vert, to be able to leap over guys. But it's just more so the savviness of back shoulder fades, spacing, knowing how to separate late within the route stem. And at the break point, he's smoother. He's smoother. He's more crisp at getting open. And I think that's what they need to pair with the other guys that they have.
Yeah. Okay. No, I wanted you just to explain that for the listeners, right? Because I know that conversation.
Oh, yeah. No, that's definitely going to happen. When he gets to the combine, whether he runs a 40 or not, people are going to be like, well, he's not explosive. Like, okay, neither was Keenan Allen.
Right.
You know what I mean? There's a lot of guys that aren't explosive, and they cook every week.
I think Devontae Adams was a 4-5 guy.
Correct.
So,
correct.
Let me do this. Let me go with the Chicago Bears. Drafting University of Michigan edge Derek Moore. And the Chicago Bears, they've been this year's Cinderella story, hot topic, however you want to put it, right?
Yeah.
But there's one thing, and I want to tell Chicago Bears, fans, front office, right? Don't forget to get better. Right, this offseason. And what I mean is that there's a statistic out there, DP, that I can't remember if it's the one score game thing, when they say like teams are 5-0 in one score games, or I can't remember, even it might be comebacks, right? But it's something that they're way above the average, right? Like extremely above the average. And what it reminds me of is last year, the Washington Commanders. Because they had the same type of statistics where they were
2 years ago, the Vikings were the same thing.
Yeah, and they were 8-0, 9-0 in one score games. And you have to realize that you're above the average, and you have to realize the law of averages is a real thing, right? So you may come back down, but the way that you prevent from coming back down from that is continuing to add talent, right? So look at your roster, find the holes within your roster. Don't rest on your laurels, right? I wouldn't trade out of the first round and be like, oh, we don't have to draft to the second, like overdo this thing. Go try to find some high-end football players, right? And Derek Moore, he helps fill a need. You have Montez Sweat on one side. Austin Booker has come around nicely for them as a complementary piece, I would say. But I think Derek Moore is another player that has that potential to be a double-digit sack guy in the NFL, right? Like he can bump right against that threshold, especially with it being a 17-game season, right? And they can continue to add pressure. We like the linebacker combination. They have Kevin Byard back there, which you got Jaquan Brisker, you got Kyler Gordon, you got Johnson on at the cornerback position. You have a lot of pieces, but that edge rush situation needs to be solved. And don't come into this offseason thinking that you've arrived and you're okay, because we've seen this conversation, like you said, with the Washington Commanders. We've seen the Minnesota Vikings take step backs. We see
you can't live like this.
Yeah, you can't. It's not a sustainable thing. I think they're moving in the right direction. You just don't want to believe this part of it because you're way above the law of average.
No, 100%. I'll throw one more out there, Key, when you brought up pass rush, because I completely forgot I made the pick. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I gave them David Bailey. And if you watch the Buccaneers defense this year, they have zero pass rush, right? We watched them, you watched the game Sunday against the Panthers. It was a 20-23 loss. And a lot of it was due to the fact of, hey, we can't get to the quarterback. And the only way we can get there is by blitzing. And it's like, if the way that Canales and Bryce operate, if they identify blitz, they got a blitz beater typically built in, whether it's a go ball one-on-one or an OTB over the ball to take advantage of the fact that you're sending your linebackers. David Bailey will be the right answer that they need to have a guy that can, what do I always call these type of guys, Keith? That clutch performer, right? That bucket getter. David Bailey is one of the best bucket getters at the edge rush position in this draft. Might be the best in terms of guys that just have a full pass rush set. He would absolutely elevate that pass rush for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
100%. And they need it, right? And they kind of thought Elijah Sarratt, and I can't remember if Elijah Sarratt is still
He's
injured.
hurt.
I know he got
Yeah, he's
injured
hurt.
Early on in the year, but they were relying on him to be kind of that pass rush provider too, right? Like, and he was just going to do it from a different way. He was going to do it from the interior defensive line position. And it hasn't taken off yet. And we'll obviously he's been injured, and we'll see next year if it comes. But they've needed the edge rush position. I always compare them and the New Orleans Saints as far as they've continued to take swings at it. They've just missed, right? We've seen them take like a Joe Tryon. They've taken edge rusher from Alabama a couple years ago. I think they took him in the second. Chris Braswell. They've taken shots at it. It just hasn't panned out to where they found their one guy to really provide pass rush help. But DP, that wraps up another episode, man, of the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast. I want to end this podcast off by saying shout out to our everydayers. Thank you for tapping in with us each and every single day. I am Keith Sanchez. You can find me on X at the Talent Code. That right there is my guy, my co-host, Mr. Damian Parson. You can find him on X at DP_NFL. And like we like to say, man, y'all come talk to us because we like to talk back.
Go subscribe and follow for free on YouTube, wherever you listen to podcasts, to get the latest episode as soon as it is available. Coming up next, guys, we are going to do perfect pairings, offensive prospect perfect pairings, defensive prospect perfect pairings, and coach them up. And I'm going to tell you why. Jacoby Lane is the perfect pairing for a Super Bowl contending team right now. Come join the conversation again tomorrow on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.